Today, we're going to dig into a fascinating persuasion trick that makes people say yes. It's a phenomenon called the fake because, and it explains why we often say yes without really thinking about it at all. But let me start by asking you something. How much of your day are you really there for? Driving to work, your morning coffee routine, even little chats with co-workers. Are you fully present, or are you kind of just running a program, following a script? Well, that autopilot mode is exactly what we're talking about today. Researchers call this idea the Mindlessness Script. The basic idea is that a lot of what we do isn't a conscious choice, but more like an automatic program our brain has learned to run to save energy. And here's the official definition they used: mindlessness. Now, this is super important. This isn't about being unintelligent or stupid. Not at all. It's actually a super efficient cognitive shortcut. Our brain, to be lazy in a smart way, just replays these old scripts without bothering to process all the new details right in front of us. So, what's one of the most powerful scripts we all follow? Researchers focused on a really simple one. When someone asks for something, and they give a reason, our automatic response is just to agree. They had a hunch that the key wasn't the quality of the reason, but just the structure of it, specifically the magic word because. And this is what led them to design an absolutely brilliant and now famous experiment to prove it. You might have heard of it. It's known as the copy machine study. What made this study so clever wasn't some fancy lab equipment. It was its incredibly simple, real-world setup that revealed this profound truth about our mental shortcuts. Okay, I want you to really imagine this. You're standing at a Xerox machine in the library. You're next in line, and a total stranger comes up and asks if they can cut in front of you. What would it take for you to say, "Yeah, sure, go ahead"? Just think about it for a second. The researchers decided to test 3 different ways of asking this very small favor, just cutting in line to make 5 pages worth of copies. First, a simple request. Second, a request with a totally valid reason. And third, a request with something that on the surface looked like a reason, but was actually complete nonsense. So, the first version was the control group, just a straightforward question. "Excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine?" No reason, no justification, super simple, right? This gives us our baseline for how helpful people are. Now, the second version gave a real legitimate reason. "May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush?" Okay, that makes perfect sense. Someone's in a hurry. It's a small favor. You'd expect a lot of people to say yes to this. And here is where it gets absolutely brilliant. The third condition. The request was, "May I use the Xerox machine because I have to make copies?" Wait, what? Of course you have to make copies. That's why you're at the copy machine. It's a reason that gives 0 new information. This is what we're going to call the fake because. So, how did people react to these 3 requests? Well, the results are genuinely shocking, and they tell us exactly when our autopilot script works perfectly and when it suddenly breaks down. Check this out. For the small favor of just 5 pages, the results were fascinating. With no reason at all, about 60% of people said yes. Okay, that seems reasonable. With a real reason, "I'm in a rush," it jumped way up to 94%. But here is the mind-blowing part. But the completely useless fake because, a nearly identical 93% of people also said yes. The reason itself was meaningless. 93%. Let that sink in for a moment. This number tells us that for a small, low-stakes request, our brain isn't even processing the content of the reason. It just hears the trigger word, because, recognizes the request plus reason pattern, and mindlessly hits the comply button. But the researchers were smart. They added a fantastic twist. They thought, okay, is there a limit to this mindlessness? What happens if the favor isn't so small anymore? What if the person wanted to cut into copy 20 pages instead of just 5? And this is where the script just completely falls apart. For the large request, 20 pages, the fake because completely failed. This dropped like a rock to just 24%, which is exactly the same as giving no reason at all. Suddenly, only a real reason actually made a difference. So what's going on here? It's all about cost. For a small request, the cost of saying yes is super low. It's just not worth the mental effort to analyze the reason, so our brain stays on autopilot. But when the request is large and effortful, making us wait for 20 pages to be copied, the cost is high. But high cost is like an alarm bell that snaps us out of the mindless script and forces us to wake up, become mindful, and actually ask, wait a minute, is that a good reason? Now, this is more than just a quirky finding about people at copy machines. This principle of mindless compliance and the fake because is happening all around us every single day. Once you know what to look for, you'll start seeing it everywhere. At the office, can you approve this report because I need it approved? In meetings, we absolutely have to have this meeting because it's on the schedule. They sound like reasons, but they're not. They add zero new information. They are just verbal tricks that hijack our mindless compliance script. And this really brings us to the profound and maybe slightly unsettling conclusion from the authors themselves. They suggested that mindlessness might not be the exception to the rule. It might actually be our default setting for most social interactions. We're running on these scripts far more often than we could ever imagine. So that leaves us with one final big question for you to think about. Now that you know about the power of the fake because trick, where is it quietly running the show in your life? And what do you think would happen if you started to switch off the autopilot and really listen to the reasons people give you? That's a simple system.